Greetings and hello and welcome to the Companion Chapel. My name is Michael, and we here at the Companion Chapel examine the Bible by covering each book, chapter by chapter and verse by verse, for you to absorb the precious subject matter being conveyed. And exciting chapters here in Genesis, and we're up to chapter 33 in the book of Genesis. And we're going to say a little prayer first before we start. And we repent in Yeshua Messiah's perfect, precious, sacred name. We praying for wisdom, understanding, counsel, knowledge, strength, and Jesus Christ, Yeshua Messiah's perfect, precious name. So here we are, Genesis chapter 33. And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came with him with 400 men. That'd be some scary sight. And remember, Esau threatened Jacob, and Rebekah, mommy, heard him, and Esau was instructed by parents to take off and live in the land, go live with his bloodline over there in the land of Syria with Laban, which we just studied for the last few chapters. So this is quite the sight. Let's just finish the verse. And he divided the children unto Leah and Rachel and unto the two handmaids. So let's just examine this verse for a second. Jacob lifts up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came. Now remember, Esau's his brother. And remember Genesis chapter 25, verse 23. God saying to Rebekah, there's two nations in your womb. Remember, Esau and Jacob were fighting in there. And this is direct symbology. This was a teaching for us in the end times. There's two nations in your womb, Rebekah. And furthermore, the elder shall serve the younger. And we know that Esau was older, not just by a couple minutes, because Jacob, called heel catcher, was holding on to Esau as Esau broke the matrix and came out and became living. Remember, interestingly, Romans chapter 9, verse 12, 13 in that area, and also Malachi chapter 1, verse 1 to 5 speaks more about Esau. God hated Esau. And how could God hate a little baby before it's even born? Because God knows you before. God knows you in the age before. God knows you before you came. Well, God owns all souls, as written in Jeremiah, but God knows you before you were born, who you're going to be. And God hates Esau, but he loved Jacob. Why? Because Esau carries with him a system of things. And that system of things is socialism and communism. God knew what this nation would be. These aren't lost nations or lost tribes. God knows where these people are. And this lesson is going to clear a lot up. So, in fact, we know that Esau is also named Rush, which is also Russia. And a few verses from now, we're going to document that in the book of... We're going to go to the book of Ezekiel, chapter 38, in fact. But here we have... It's the same today. As Jacob looked upon this nation, and as we look upon the nation Rush today, which is the bloodlines of Esau, it's the same Russia, a big menacing presence on the world stage. Always there thinking, Russia could just make such a mess of planet Earth if they felt like it. Their system of communism and human rights abuses and lack of freedom of religion for their peoples is something that God hates. Communism, like a big cult, telling people how to think and what to do, and no free will allowed, or minimal. And God hates communism. So here we have Jacob looking up, and he's not seeing a bunch of guys looking for a party. He's seeing a bunch of soldiers. He's seeing a bunch of special forces, a bunch of troopers up there with Esau. Like, Esau was no slouch. Remember, it was promised to him, you would be a great nation. There's two nations here, Esau and Jacob. And this is very interesting, and we'll just let the Bible teach itself here too. And he put the handmaids and the children foremost, and Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph hindermost. It sounds like Jacob's playing favorites here a little bit. That's fine. We know that Jacob loved Rachel the most, and that's fine. He still loved Leah, of course. Leah had 6 kids for the guy. Like, come on, he loved her also. 3. I'm just It's just human emotion. You can't help how you feel. God wants your free will love also. Let's just leave that at 3. And he passed over before them and bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he came near unto his brother. So Genesis 33:3. And this is what Jacob does. He's putting on a bit of a show here. I'm sure that Rebekah would have told Jacob, saying that the older shall serve the younger. But we'll just see. There's promises from God to Jacob. This is just Jacob showing some human emotion here. It's borderlining. Some commentators have mentioned it's like he felt threatened and his faith was stretched. But we'll just see what he's saying. And Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. So Jacob he's humbling himself. He's saying, okay, he's got his hands up. He's not looking for a fight. He's not being a punk. He's showing he's already sent this big present ahead of livestock. And we're just going to see what happens here. Esau ran out to meet him. And they're just like two brothers. A big hug. I haven't seen each other for 20 years. And you can see that Jacob didn't come back looking for a fight. Esau is ready for a fight. He's got 400 henchmen with him. And Jacob has youngins, a whole bunch of livestock, women and children. And he's not looking for a fight. And so he humbled himself. He acted accordingly. He didn't come in there, with his hat on way up high and cigarette and a whole bunch of bling, looking for some trouble. He's take note on character here, and we know that Jacob was a good, smart guy. He stood his ground, and he knew when to act accordingly. And let's just read this. So they were happy to see each other, to say the least. Okay, fell on his neck, just means a big hug, and the European style kissing. And 5. And he lifted up his eyes and saw the women and children and said, who are those with thee? And he said, the children which God hath graciously given thy servant. Well, again, Jacob being overly humble. Jacob letting him know, listen, Esau, I'm at your mercy. I'm with all these women and children right now, my whole livestock. You have 400 troopers here with you, special forces guys. Like, really, you could just slice my head off here, like you threatened to do a long time ago, back around chapter 26, 27. You could do all that and just take all this livestock and take the women and children and have a big giant community, or you could let me go. So Jacob realizes that he's kind of at Esau's mercy, but Jacob should also realize that God is with him, and God has made him some big promises to make him a great nation, blessings. You shall be a blessing. You got the blessings from Abraham, from his dad Isaac, and they travel down through the generations. God confirms and installs a conditional covenant with Jacob, also with Isaac and with Abraham, his great-granddaddy. So that's what Jacob is carrying. That's Jacob's true weapons, the gospel armor that he had. And, it's human emotion when you're up against that. It might seem to play like this, but Jacob knew deep down in his heart he'd be okay. But you don't push it. It's like when God makes you a promise, like he has in here, pray for something and I will give it to thee. Well, you don't take your chances. You don't do a swan dive off a 200-foot bridge, or you don't go around base jumping and expect that you're going to be okay, or think you're all of a sudden, I'm a long-distance swimmer because God said so. God said I'd be, I could ask for something and he will give it to me. You have to still use common sense, and we're seeing some common sense from Jacob here on how to act accordingly and how not to taunt. And taunting is a big contentious issue, especially nowadays where it's taunting somebody and talking behind somebody's back. You got a reality TV show nowadays with stuff like that kind of material. Just blasphemous material. So we're seeing how not to act and how to act. You humble yourself and you play it cool. All right, let's carry on here. And he said, this verse 8, We're at verse 6. Then the handmaids came near, they and their children, and they bowed themselves down. They all did the intro. How's it going? Being humble, not acting all like, hey, let's have a party here. Let's break out the shots, have a few beers. You got any smokes? No, they were being humble and respectful. We're at your mercy. We're coming into your area. Let's be nice here. This is Jacob's brother, Esau. Okay, they had a little friction before. Esau threatened him. Well, you know what? Stuff happens in families. 33:6 of Genesis here. Then the handmaids, 33:7. And Leah also with her children came near and bowed themselves, and after came Joseph near and Rachel, and they bowed themselves. That was the order that Jacob asked for. He didn't ask for a mob. Everyone just kind of pushed your way in. There was an order. It was orderly and disciplined. Take note. And 8. And he said, what meanest thou by all this drove which I met? And he said, these are to find grace in the sight of my Lord. Okay, so, and he said, who's this saying? Esau is saying, what's this stuff that you brought? Like, you brought all this livestock for me and this stuff. And of course, the livestock's not just going to come by itself. It's going to have handlers and servants. And so it was quite the package that Jacob put together for Esau. Listen, I'm coming back. I got God's blessings. Everything belongeth to God anyway. So being stingy and thinking it's all mine, no, it's not. Everything belongs to God. God allows you to have it. God allowed Jacob to have it, and he realizes this. Laban realized it, and you should realize it too. From your paycheck to that car in the driveway to the shingles on your roof, God is allowing that, and give thanks for every breath you take and every morsel of food. God owns everything. So don't be stingy. And Jacob, he was a giver here. He realized everything belongs to God. I'm going to give this as a present to this superficial brother of mine who, as we see, he was in the ways of the world. He was a worldly man. He didn't care about his birthright. He didn't care. He sold it for a bowl of soup, as we were just taught in the last couple of chapters of Genesis here. We're talking about Esau. So then Jacob said back to him, these are to find grace in the sight of my Lord. He doesn't call him my brother. He's not calling him. We have to think about this when Jacob keeps calling Esau my Lord. Because my Lord means master. He keeps calling Esau master. Esau should know that not only did he lose first birthright, he also lost the blessings of the firstborn. And also, I'm sure Rebecca would have told him, old Mumsy would have said, the older is going to serve the younger. So Esau's probably just like, well, this guy's really caking it on here. Let's just see what happens. And Jacob's not being a punk. Jacob is tying together any potential loose ends here. He's got his whole family, and he's up against his brother that threatened to kill him. And his brother just happens to have 400 henchmen with him, ready to rock. They're not just sitting back. 9. And Esau said, I have enough, my brother, keep that thou hast unto thyself. Well, he's sitting there saying that he has enough. That's fine. We know, and we just recently, of course, we studied chapter by chapter, and we were just at chapter 27, and we know from studying from the manuscripts, which everyone should have a copy, that we know that chapter Genesis 27:39 was written incorrectly, so we're just going to review that quickly. Written incorrectly in the English is Isaac said to Daddy, Isaac said to Esau his son, you will be away from the fatness of the land, was told to Esau, and so Russia is today. They're not in the best spot on the planet. They're a menacing bully on the planet. They're a menacing presence. But God's word always comes to pass, all prophecy. This Christianity is not a religion. This is a reality, and we see it come to pass. And there's where Esau is now. He's up in Russia. But let's just stick to this verse here. So Esau's saying, I have enough. Keep what you need. Remember, there's two nations, and they're both going to be nations. You have to have stuff to be a nation. So Esau's putting this on that he thinks he's got enough stuff. That's fine. He's got tons of stuff. He's got 400 guys with him. So, you know what? we have to go to Ezekiel, and we're just going to quickly go to see how this plays out between Jacob and Isaac, Jacob and Esau, his brother. Who are these two nations? Is this written further in prophecy? Of course it is. Is this happening right now? Well, of course it is. So Ezekiel chapter 38, and I already got my bookmark there. And we can read that the prince chief of Mesha and Tubal, the prophecy against him, this prince chief is the word Rush, which is the word Russia. So when you see this word, the prince chief, in Ezekiel chapter 38, around verse 2, we have the prophecy of the two nations coming against the free world. The two nations that are in the womb in Genesis chapter 25, 23. And you know what? We're not going to study this. We're just going to say, using Esau as a Russian communist type, we see that Antichrist, as Russia, would always come from the north. And Russia and all red nations, as written here, this takes a little bit to teach, and we're doing Genesis right now, but so I'm just going to go over it quickly. All the red nations are after the liberties, the promises of God, the prosperity and blessings that God gives to the nations of Jacob, or the 10 tribes of Israel. What are the red nations doing, for example, just to one of the most blessed nations on planet Earth, and the other superpower besides the Russia? Because Esau and Jacob, Esau representing Rush, and Jacob representing the European nations, Canada, United States, and the true superpower, the heart of the superpowers, is Britain and the United States. And what are these red nations doing to them? They're just sucking the life out of them. As we just finished saying, how are they doing it? Just walk around your house and check out. Just turn over this and that. And you'll see made in China, made in China. And that's just how Satan does it. He's using his 4 hidden dynasties, the economy. He's using the money system as one hidden dynasty to destroy the nations of Jacob, of Israel, of the 12 tribes of Israel. He's using the political systems, getting into politicians and kicking God out, getting into their minds and consenting to kicking God out, using special interests to kick God out. Therefore, the promises of God also leave, and the blessings of God leave. Using the system of education, propaganda, the internet and the cable TV just constantly pounding us with many ways that seem right unto man, but the end thereof of all these ways are the ways of death. And I just quoted Proverbs chapter 14. The ways of death are many. They always seem okay. They come across your TV or the internet and they seem pleasant. Satan comes in peacefully and prosperously and harmless. And his theories that seem to be coming from people of important people of stature, their opinions, their views and their beliefs, just destroying what God has allowed us, undermining the scoffers and contention and reproach. Unless you kick that out and protect yourself with God, you're always going to have no peace. You're going to call for peace. You're going to claim peace. You're going to these theories and systems of ideas and suppositions. Oh, a great new philosophy came out. Let's make it a religion. There's no peace in that. There's no inner peace. You got 2 huge superpowers here that were in Rachel's womb. Esau and Jacob. And the elder shall serve the younger. And how do they serve? Do you ever see human rights aid coming from Rush to the United States or Canada? Hardly never. The other way, it's always undercover. Shipload after shipload over the years of grains, food stuff, and just trying to keep that country afloat because of the corruption, the human rights violations, the pounding down of their own people. Just look at this guy Rus just recently. This president of Rus right now, president of Russia, Vladimir Putin. What's one day he has the Olympics, like a big giant show, $1 billion show. Well, there's massive poverty in his country. And not even a few months later, he just decides to go invade a country. This guy's just the system of Rus and communism. They might not call themselves communists right now, but it's the same. So that just covered verse 9. Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Keep what you have unto yourself. He's always just trying to save face. I got lots of stuff, man. I don't need your stuff. Okay, I really blasted away verse 9 there. So, I hope that comes together for you. It's to try and teach Ezekiel chapter 38 when we're not at Ezekiel chapter 38 would be for the deeper student. And God bless y'all. 33:10. And Jacob said, Nay, I pray thee, if now I have found grace in thy sight, then receive my present at hand. For therefore I have seen thy face, as though I have seen the face of God, and thou was pleased with me. Well, this is getting a little bit much here. But also, on the other hand, you feel relief. Jacob's feeling relief. This guy shows up. He's got 400 special forces guys with him. He's got 400 guys ready to fight. I got women and children and a whole bunch of livestock. Yeah, I have some guys around me that can defend. But, we are on the move. These guys are looking for a fight, ready for a fight to defend themselves. And the leader of them, Esau, threatened me about 20 years ago. He threatened to kill me. And let's just go to 10:11. Take, I pray thee, my blessing that is brought unto thee, because God hath dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. And he urged him, and he took it. You know what? Esau took it. Esau took all that cattle and stuff. He's to the ways of the world. Took all the livestock and all the, what it takes to have livestock. You have to have handlers and servants. And yeah, he says, you know what? He took a few looks over there. Well, that's cool. Ooh, there's some ching-ching, bling-bling there. Let's take it. And he took it. And that's fine. That's human emotion too. People are always going to be like that, and that's fine. People like to be takers. We have people the ways of the world who have obsessivenesses, covetousnesses. They have slander and jealousies. Why did Esau first threaten Jacob? You don't just threaten to kill someone unless there's some conceitedness going on. There's some jealousy. There's some high-minded feelings going on. So let's just leave that at that. We have Esau's character, the ways of the world, and we got Jacob. And, everything's good now. We see that Jacob feels some relief. 12. And he said, let us take our journey and let us go, and I will go before thee. Okay, something interesting happening here. And you're going to see that Jacob's almost asking for like almost a military style procession or escort type thing here. He's like, all right, you know what? Since you're here anyway, and I'm just with women and children and cattle, why don't you give us, some security here? Let's have a security force around us. Let's see what happens. And he said to him, my Lord knoweth that the children are tender, and the flocks and herds are young with me, and if men should overdrive them one day, all flock will die. So Jacob is asking for some, hey man, since you're here, brother, and you are my older brother, why don't you, Jacob's seeing he's feeling comfortable, and he's seeing this special forces guys. Why don't you give me an escort here? Why don't you come around, just protect the outer edges here? Just, I don't want anyone grabbing some cattle or, taking some people or, stealing stuff. So we're starting to feel a little sense of relief here from Jacob, and then we're starting to feel the human emotion as God's trying to teach us. But always have faith in God. And fear not. What's God say about fear? Fear not. I am with thee. Let me into your heart and keep me there. As your veil of Christ and hedge of God, saturated by the Holy Spirit, is your only protection today. And you have to know how to ask for it. 14. Let my Lord, I pray thee, pass over before his servant, and I will lead softly according as the cattle that goeth before me, and the children be able to endure until I come to my Lord unto Seir. So he's saying, give me, stick with me, stick around, and give me like an escort up to where you're going to live, because that's where Esau was living, in Seir. And Seir means rough area. Seir also can translate like hairy, rough. And that's exactly how Esau was described when he was born. He was hairy. He was rough. And he's in the ways of the world, rough. And let's just leave that at that. That's just where he lives. Seir. In the rough area. Over the mountainous area. And Esau said, let me now leave with these some folk that are with me. And he said, what needeth it? Let me find grace in the sight of the Lord. So Esau says, let me leave with these some folk that are with me. And then Jacob said, what needeth it? Let me find sight in the Lord. 16. So Esau returned that day on his way to Seir. So they just went their own separate ways. 17. And Jacob's journeyed to Succoth and built him a house and made booths for his cattle. And therefore the name of the place is called Succoth, which means booths. So he set up a community. He set up some infrastructure. He would need watering troughs. He would need corrals and fencing. We already know that Jacob was good at that. He was a smart guy. He was a husbandman, a farmer. He took care of his family, his livestock, his community. He is the patriarch of the 12 tribes of Israel. This is a standard set for how to act and conduct yourself. And Jacob came to Shalem, which means safe, a city in Shechem, which is the land of Canaan, which is not safe. When he came from Aram and pitched his tent before the city. Now there's a little bit going on here. Let's just examine this a little closer. So Jacob is back in the land of Canaan. That's the promised land. And we know by the word of the Lord here that the second influx of the fallen angels, as written in the book of Jude, and we covered it very thoroughly here in the first bunch of chapters of Genesis, the first 6 chapters specifically, influx of the fallen angels, or the Raphaim, the giants, are there. Therefore, this is no safe place. In fact, this is a very unsafe place. Savory characters, the fallen angels of the book of Jude, are still here in the land of Canaan. So this is not a safe place, and I'm pushing this message here right now for a specific reason, because of what happens in chapter 34 with old sister Dinah. And we're not getting there yet. Let's just finish 19. And Jacob bought a parcel of a field where he spread his tent at the hand of the children of Amor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. 100, well, you know, we like biblical numerics, and for the deeper student, we know 100 means God's elect. But that's fine. He bought a parcel of land. Now we're just going to finish chapter 33 of Genesis. And he erected there an altar and called it El-O Israel, which means God, the God of Israel. So look what Jacob does. Right away, he secures a place and gives thanks to God and puts up an altar for sacrifices and to say thank you. That was how they repented back then, and that's how they cleansed themselves back then. It was by the altar of God, not the altar of some theory or someone's opinions or views, or someone, you got your religion, I got mine. Just love Jesus, that's all that you have to do. Listen, there's a lot more than that. Systems of ideas and speculations. No. Altar of God, yes. And that finishes up chapter 33, and that was a great chapter, and there's a lot more in there for you, and I really hope you enjoyed that, and please stay tuned to the companion chapel as we get to chapter 34 tomorrow. Have a great day. Eliyah, God is Yahweh.